Okay, it's that time of the week. Let's get it. Indeed. Man talk, man talk, man talk, man talk, man talk central. That's what we're doing here. Four dudes out of the mud, now we're ruling here. We give it to you, deliver like Amazon. You're listening to Kings and Champions. No matter what we're talking about, we're gonna give it to you straight, man, no doubt. No doubt. Hey yo, we on our way to greatness. God's got our back, so chill and relax. This is Man Talk Central. Welcome back to another episode of Man Talk Central. Let's get it.
Welcome. Good morning and welcome to another episode of Man Talk Central. This podcast is all about experience and perspectives, right, wrong, or indifferent. You would get it raw and uncut. Before I go any further, please like and follow us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and or email us at the address below. Now, let me introduce to some and present to others. Three brothers like no other. Good morning, Dan.
Morning. How's everybody doing out there? Looking forward to this episode. Let's get it.
Outstanding. DJ Eddie T. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. That would be me. Mr. Rogers used to say it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. I love it. Let's get it.
Mr. Colonel Esquire. Good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Good morning, gang. You know, I need to work on a catchphrase for my introduction, but until then, it's just a hello. So I'm ready. Let's go.
Gotcha. And I'm your host, the law-abiding citizen. Today's topics, we have four of them for you. The first one, ICE agents to assist with TSA current issues. March Madness, upsets, shockers. Enlisted age being extended to 42 years of age. And lastly, freedom of press. Should there be any limits? Should there be limits? So let's start with the first one, ICE agents to assist with TSA current issues. We're going to start with you today, Colonel Esquire. Talk to us.
Well, I will say this. So I remember years ago going to Germany for my assignment. You know, when for those out there who don't know, you know, military assignments, they include Army or military bases, you know, in the U.S., and you also have the opportunity to go overseas. So I think my second assignment was going to Germany. And I remember going through the airport in Frankfurt, and the Polizei, which is the police there in Germany, was patrolling and doing security in the airport. And I'm like, man. And they were carrying at the time, I mean, these are old weapons. So there was like the old style AK-47s. And in my mind, I was like, man, you'll never see this in America. And so now we fast forward, and guess what we have? We have ICE agents patrolling our airports. No, we don't have AK-47s, but they have M4s, and they have assault style, combat style rifles, you know, military gear. And so at first glance, okay, we had the war on terrorism, we had 9/11. It's really not that big of a deal. But if it was for that reason and that reason alone, I wouldn't really, bat an eye to it. But I really think that it's sending a message. It's sending two messages for one. For one, you have TSA, that you have a whole organization that you're not funding. And so instead of trying to work on funding that issue or funding that organization, you're trying to circumvent the situation for your own political concerns by bringing ICE in there. For one, ICE is not even there. The whole point of ICE is to help with immigration. So why are they in airports? I mean, why are they doing that? I mean, they don't go through the same type of training as TSA. So why are they there? So that's first red flag. Second red flag is, again, in my opinion, you're targeting a certain, not demographic, but a certain group of people that you ran your political, campaign on. And a lot of the people that you're targeting, in my opinion, aren't even fit in the category that they're not violent criminals, they're not this and that. And if they're violent, if they're illegal, more than likely, they're not going to be coming in through the airports anyhow. So I don't even know what we're talking about here. It's just unfortunate. I don't really have a problem with seeing an ICE agent in the airport. I just have a problem with the reason why they're there. And you have the TSA people, having to find other jobs or quitting altogether because they're not able to make the bills because of a political squabble. That's unnecessary. We're already $38 trillion in debt. Just fund the organization, fund ICE. I mean, not ICE, fund TSA, fund the Department of Homeland Security, fund the Coast Guard, which falls under the Homeland Security. Let's just keep it moving. I mean, we're already in debt. So, it's just money anyway. So let's give the people the money so they can make a living.
Dan, Thunder Dan, good morning.
Morning.
Talk to us.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure, but we had to double check. But at the time of this recording, I think they're either in talks or they've already started funding those TSA agents, which will be a good thing. So hopefully they can fill the gap for the guys that have left, or excuse me, individuals, because it could be females that have left, and we can start replenishing TSA and getting them back to their position and getting ICE out of the airport. I'm not a big fan of it. Be honest with you, here lately I've taken a different view about our ICE agents, and I think that they should probably be the ones to join our next topic later on, join the military, since they need some extra training and they like to kick people out of areas that they clearly could be in. So it'd be nice to send them over there and see if they can remove some people from some spots in Iran. That'd be cool to see that happen. But yeah, let me get back to the subject. Taking care of transportation with ICE is not a good idea. They're not qualified. I have to echo Colonel Esquire's statements. They are not qualified. They're not, from the roles I've seen, they don't even have the patience to deal with the average citizen in any kind of capacity. There's nobody stepping in to say this is wrong, we need to do this the right way. Their training, we went back to their training, we've talked about it before, 47 days. TSA agents, it's a little bit longer. They got a little bit more strenuous training than even our own ICE agents. You got them running around with guns in the airports. You've seen videos of them tossing people on tables and stuff. So, and don't get me wrong, some instances warrant them to use physical contact, some don't. So we need to figure out a better role for ICE rather than throwing them in the airport. And I do agree with Colonel Esquire. If they're criminals, and why are they at the airport? Most of them are going to try and get it another way or have another mode of transportation to get where they got to go, or go do nefarious activities out in the neighborhood. Your average traveler is what we're looking at going through airports. I get it. Don't get me wrong. There are some criminals that have international access passports. I mean, that's just how it is. But the percentage of that happening rather than the percentage of ICE being out in the street is totally different. It's just a hard role for ICE right now because they don't have a good look. Nobody wants to see them going around, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully these TSA agents can come back and reclaim their positions, and we can get back to normalcy in the United States, and some kind of unity.
That's Ben. I'm not muted this time. DJ Eddie T.
Yes, sir. Well, I would like to first speak on the havoc that it's causing with airports and the delays. I know here in Houston, people are saying that it's taking them like 4 hours to get through their lines, and they're not allowing people to pre-check bags and, things of that nature. With that happening, it's causing more and more and more of a backup, because if people are missing flights, that's making the next flight, overbooked, and so forth and so on. It's a domino effect. But with the TSA agents not being able to be paid, but ICE is being paid, I think that's an unfair move. They're funded by the government. So why not fund both of them? And the people that are losing their jobs, or not losing their jobs, they're necessarily think they're losing their job. They're just, walking up because they're not getting paid. I mean, how many of us would truly take that same position and go to work for weeks without getting paid? You have to find something else and, to take care of your family. So, their presence, again, as gentlemen have spoken of before, is kind of an intimidating thing. But again, you have these long lines, you have these agents walking around. TSA is more for, going through the security checks and all of that stuff. I necessarily haven't seen any videos of them doing that, but are they walking up and down beside people and checking them? Or, I mean, what are they doing? I mean, that's a question to the group and you can answer whenever. But, I mean, is it just their presence? What are they trying to do? Because, again, here, there are a lot of agents here at Bush and at Hobby at our two airports. So I'm just trying to figure out what it is that they're assisting with, per se. Is it getting people through the gates? I mean, what are they doing?
Well, from what I'm guessing, right? Are you guys still getting feedback from me? Okay, good. A couple of things. One, we all know it's a political issue, but I do believe that somebody thought it would be a good idea. Hey, since a lot of TSA agents aren't coming to work anymore because we're not giving them any money, they make an average salary of about $45,000. To your point, DJ Eddie T, they're probably like, hey, let me go work somewhere else because I need some income, right? So I think it's a political piece. And they probably said, well, hey, we can use doggone ICE to come over here and fill the void. To Dan's point about training. They're not trained to do it, right? I mean, you would think that it would be a simple process to, get a couple people through. But I can't say that there's been a element of training outside of on the spot, on the job training. I do know it's causing problems with airports, with them delayed flights, missed flights, canceled flights, which is going to cause big problems because some people, that's all they do for work. They travel. And if they got to stand in line 4, 5, 6 hours, that's delayed. So it's a lot of money that's being lost through this. But again, I don't know if you guys, I know yesterday I was listening to, who's that, the House guy, Johnson, I believe that was his name. All he wants to say, this is all on the Democrats, right? And then all the Democrats are saying, well, hey, it's all on the Republicans, right? So it all boils down to these doggone political figures we have in office. Don't get me wrong. I remember when I first went to Europe and I saw them jokers walk around with them M16. I was like, what's really going on over here? But it's natural. It's a natural scene. So if they decide to have ICE in the airports patrolling from time to time, I ain't got no issue with that. I'm all for it, right? Put them to work. As long as they're uncovered, right? And they're not just, stopping people for, as Dan and Ephraim alluded to, what criminal's going to go through the airport, right? I don't know. But if they want extra security, okay, so be it. But in the end, something needs to happen to get these folks back to work. Because this is what they decided to do. This is what they like doing. This is their way of living and taking care of their family. Something needs to happen with the funding piece. I don't foresee it changing. Well, I think Monday. I think there's supposed to be a bill on the floor Monday. So we'll see and we'll go from there. Any alibis? I guess we tired of ice, ice, baby.
Reinforce the rhythm, double check the mics, reiterate the styles I know that you like. Get your rhyme ambassador, the man you've been asking for. Came to kick past your door, automatic. I got the charismatic persona. Bar stay hot like I'm sitting inside a sauna. I stay away from the drama. I separate myself from MCs like a sentence has got a comma. G-I-B-S to the O-N. Thank you, Lord, for the blessings that you're showing. I get on the mic and start going. It's so intoxicating, like a .08 that I'm blowing. A hobby of mine, but I do it like a profession. bars over bass and treble, there's no question. Yes, I'm confessing, before I got saved, I used to pull girls like this at my discretion. But that man is gone, he went away, at war with your flesh, gotta die each day. In Christ, I'm a new creature. But on this microphone, yo, I'm still a monster that'll haunt ya. Watch me go bonkers, I might go unconscious. Flavor in the beat like cayenne and cilantro. Bars are raining in the booth to wear a poncho. Man talk central, 4 dudes, quattro.
So while headlines are focused on ICE agents stepping in to support TSA and a broader conversation around security, there's another kind of chaos capturing the country's attention. March Madness, yes indeed, where unpredictability takes center stage, and every year we see shocking upsets that flip expectations on their head. So with that, talk to me about y'all's brackets or what you know about upsets with this March Madness. I'll start with you, DJ Eddie T.
All right. But I didn't do a bracket, but I first off want to say that I'm severely heartbroken that the Cougs lost. You know, that's home. My wife's, old college. But anyway, yeah, they never could get it together. So them getting beat the other night is just, okay, I had my moment of silence. But anyway,
I thought we was about to do the Waiting Child song. I'm sorry, but go ahead.
no, not this go round. It would be more like We Are the World or something like that. So, but yeah, there's been some upsets. I'm surprised that, of course, Kansas getting beat. I have to go down through them. I don't have them all in my head, but Kansas, that was a shocker, getting beat. I guess, Gonzaga, because they've been kind of, shocking people, throughout the past few years. Clemson getting beat, Villanova getting beat. I just, High Point beating Wisconsin. That's just like, man, you got to be kidding me. It's like, who in the world is High Point? Dan discussed them last week or the week before. I've never heard of High Point, but their enrollment is probably about to go up. Trust me, because they've been going up. Yeah, you got BYU getting beat. Yeah, Georgia getting beat by St. Louis. It's just, yeah. This year has been, to me, has been one of those. I know March Madness is one of the things that anybody can get beat, but this year, to me, is some of the tops that get knocked off, and it's just kind of shocking. So, but I'm gonna stay tuned and see who comes out.
Outstanding. Colonel Esquire.
Yeah, I think, and I got kind of started late following the tournament. But to DJ DT's point, I mean, I think my personally biggest shocker is High Point, only because, again, to what Dan alluded to earlier, I thought we were talking about a gun that, low-level criminals use on the streets. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know it was an actual university. And Long Island University, or Long Island Iced Tea, I didn't know it was one of those, you know what I'm saying? So I love the fact about March Madness, but I think, of course, I've always been a Kansas Jayhawk hater ever since Danny Manning, ran through my favorite OU Sooner team back in '88. So, it's hate the Jayhawks for life. All good. We keep it moving. So it was a shocker. But then again, not really, because Rick Pitino has always kind of been that coach. He's always been the guy with that team, that's always going to be prepared and be there. So that was a pleasant surprise. But I think what's interesting to me is, and I slept on the Big Ten this year. I did, partly because, I'm just not really a follower of the Big Ten. And plus, everybody's, work schedules and all that. I just really hadn't had a chance to follow basketball like I normally do. But 4 of the teams out of the Final 8 are Big Ten teams. Like, we have a chance. Well, I mean, if it wasn't for Michigan State, you could have had a Big Ten Final 4, but you still could have at least 3 teams in the Final 4. I didn't realize that they were that strong. And even, teams like, Iowa and Nebraska are like showing up. Like, so the whole conference has, done an upgrade for the most part. So that was, I think, to me, the biggest shocker of the tournament is that how strong the Big Ten has been this year. And I slept on that. But again, you know, for all the LeBron James haters out there, Arizona's still in it. His son, even though he's only getting probably 2.1 points a game, he's still on the team. So he might have a national championship. So, Arizona is still my pick for the Final Four or to win it all.
Outstanding. And just for the audience, High Point University was founded in 1924 as High Point College by the Methodist Protestant Church. And in the city of High Point, which is in North Carolina, let me cut to the chase. A lot of the individuals that are playing for High Point are the ones who got cut by University Chapel Hill, UNC. Anyway, Dan, talk to us, brother.
Oh, I'm glad we talk about basketball, but I'm not glad we had to bring LeBron James into this conversation. Come on, man. Bronzexuals out there, he ain't got nothing to do with it. His son playing better than him. Y'all gotta watch LeBron, honestly. But we'll go back to March Madness. We talk about LeBron. That's a whole nother segment right there. But I know you guys were talking about all the upsets. I was more impressed with after finally catching up with it, like St. John's. I know when we were growing up, St. John's used to be a powerhouse. They weren't the greatest, but they were always in it. Kind of like I wish Georgetown was up in there. I know y'all remember those days of them rolling out. And the other thing is Michigan State. That program is always a decent program. Every year you can look to Michigan State to try to get somewhere. They had a little run where it was like every time you turn around, they were making the final 16, or Sweet 16, excuse me. So Michigan State coming back, that looked good. What I'm most looking forward to now is the Duke UConn. That's going to be interesting. That will be real close game. They got one guy pretty much, and Duke plays for UConn has one dude, and Duke pretty much has the whole team that plays in a good unity. So that'd be a tight game. And then the other one that I was looking up in here was your boys out there in Michigan and Tennessee. I don't know how that's going to fare out because Michigan is pretty interesting. I got to see some of the Tennessee highlights. I didn't get to watch the game, so I'm going to be pretty interested in watching those two games, and we'll see what happens.
Yes. I was shocked with Iowa, right? I'm still kind of shocked with Iowa. I mean, I could say Iowa in football, but basketball? But then again, correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't that where BJ Armstrong went to college? Was it Iowa? Iowa State. Because I remember them beating OU back in the day. But anyway, it's a different conversation. Um, St. John's, I thought they really had a chance. I only say that because of Rick Pitino. So I kind of echo the comments where Colonel Esquire is coming from. But my bracket is kind of shot to crap because I did have Gonzaga in there. When I pick Gonzaga, they lose. When I don't pick Gonzaga, they're always in the Final Four. I just got to stop messing with them folks from Washington State. But my picks, one bracket I have Duke, the other bracket I have Michigan. I do have both of them going head to head. So all my money's on the table for. Let me back up. I'm not gonna say all my money's on the table, but I got a couple coins on the table for Duke really representing because them Boozer boys, they're playing some ball. Duke as a whole is playing some ball. But if I think there's a true underdog, it's Illinois. So I would tell you all to keep your eyes on Illinois because I believe that they might shock the world. And I know my boss did a bracket with ChatGPT and a couple other AI engines. And ChatGPT had Illinois winning. I think Claude had Arizona winning. And I remember the other one, Gemini. I don't remember what it had, but it was pretty interesting. So I'm just glad they're good games. And I think somebody mentioned something about Michigan and hold on, who do they play today? Is it today or tomorrow?
Michigan plays Tennessee.
Yeah, Michigan's gonna smoke them guys. It's gonna be close first half like always, but then Michigan's gonna pull away, hands down, hands down. Yeah, March Madness bracket. Gotta love it. Any other comments
Yeah,
regarding
I
regarding
want
March
to jump
Madness?
in real quick and just kind of touching on the Big East Conference when I was coming up, or when we, the three of us, were playing ball together. That Big East was something to deal with. You had your Georgetown, Syracuse, St. John's, UConn, Villanova, Seton Hall. Those that was just a conference. I mean, just hands down. I just wanted to kind of throw that in, but I think that was the most dominant conference. But now, as Colonel Esquire stated, it's the Big Ten now. It's funny how things shift as time goes on. I mean, things aren't always supposed to stay the same, but I just miss those days of St. John's with Chris Mullins, and of course, Patrick Ewing, and I can't think of the guy from Villanova, but like I said, Syracuse, the Orangemen, man, those were the days. Just reminiscing. Those were just reminiscing.
Well, instead of saying Big East or Big 12 or Big 10, we should say NIL. NIL. That's what we need to start saying.
Man, it feels good to be doing this again. Reliving the days of my youth. I haven't had this much fun in a long time. Colonel Esquire. Also go by GIBSON. F-G on the mic. It goes 1, 2, uno, dos. If I ain't the best, man, I gotta be close. Best thing since sliced bread, I gotta be toast. I'm a soldier, always guard the limits of my post. Yep, Man Talk Central, I'm one of your hosts. I'm on point, precise, with the poetry and prose, making the grade like it's the end of the semester. I'm the crown flow, always under the weather, but I don't need a booster shot. I like my bar 6, so the music's hot. Delivering the kill shot, coup de grace. You know I stay fly, fuselage, stay fly.
So, March Madness reminds us every year that age, ranking, and expectations don't always determine outcomes. Underdogs rise, veterans shine, and opportunity can come at any stage. That same idea is showing up in different arenas. As conversations grow around extended military enlistment age to 42, opening the door for more experienced individuals to step up and serve. So I'm going to start with you, Dan. Enlisted age going from 30, what is it, 35 to 42? What are your thoughts?
Yes, sir. You might want to get the censor button ready and start bleeping out some of the things I got to say, because this is not going to be a very popular opinion. First, I'm going to start off with all you keyboard warriors out there that want to tell everybody how to do things and what to do, and y'all the MAGA hats and got your red hats on. Now's your chance. Donnie T opened it up. And I got Donnie T from a homeboy of mine, so Donnie T opened it up for you. Let's get it, baby. Now's the time, right? You guys are sitting back there. If I was in the military, now you have the opportunity. He opened up the doors for you. What you gonna do? Come from behind your desk, get out, go enlist.
Often we overlook the brave men and women who almost join the military, like this local hero.
I don't like the word hero, but it describes me perfectly. Very few people know what it's like to nearly enlist and go to war. I'm built different. No one has nearly joined as many branches as I have. Green Beret, Navy SEALs, jet fighter, TIE fighter, stormtrooper. Did you guys get it when I said almost enlisted?
Second, I do feel for our young cats, our young Thundercats out there. Nobody wants to see war. Combat is not pretty. It's not glamorous. It's not glorious. Get it? That's why we sign up in the military. We do what we have to do to make ends meet, or we do what we have to do to make our lives better, or to get back home. Combat is not one of those things that you want to see happen. So you would hope that our elected officials, as we will put it, will be able to come to some kind of agreement with foreign dignitaries. Let's just get that out the way. Now, as far as 35 to 42, that could be an issue. As a 42-year-old man trying to keep up with a 20-something-year-old man, it is rough when you first start out. Now, if you've been in the military for a little bit, you've been in shape or working out, okay, it's not going to be as hard, and the requirements physically are going to be different as far as doing the tests, because you fall into different age brackets. But going into basic training as a 42-year-old man, it is going to be difficult. Not saying it can't be done. Kudos to those guys that want to do it and want to change their life for the better and take advantage of all the opportunities that are out there from the military. Kudos to you. I'm just letting you know it is not going to be an easy road. There's going to be a lot of times you're away from your family, and at that age, usually you have your family life. You have kids. You may have grandkids. Who knows? It's going to be time away from them. You will not see them. I guarantee it. I'm happy that he opened up the door for these opportunities for all these other people. But at the same time, I am concerned. It's going to take a lot of work to understand where he's going. And it has been done before. Obviously, when we had other conflicts, wars, whatever we're calling them nowadays. But that was only done for a short period of time. So I'm interested to see how long this window is going to be and what is going to come out of it. Hopefully they meet their recruitment goals and they close this window ASAP.
Outstanding. Speaking of recruitment goals, I think one thing they should target is Cat 4s. And I'm sure Private Colonel Esquire might talk about the Cat 4 syndrome, but I'm going to save you for last. DJ Eddie T, talk to us.
Yes, sir. I really want to know truly how many people will really try to join at that late age. I don't know if that's something that past military guys, if, I know you guys have gone and done your tours and whatnot, but say if you were, say 40, 41, would you want to go back? I doubt it very seriously, but to open it up for that late age, as I'm going to call it, late age, I don't really think that many people are wanting to go and do that. You're going to have those patriots, if you will, that may want to go fight and do their thing. Raising age, to me, I don't think is something that people are really going to get I don't think they're going to get the outcome that they were, I guess, looking for. But again, I don't want anybody to go fight. I know that we have to protect our country, but I'm the peacemaker guy. I'd rather, I'm a sales rep, so I'd rather talk it out and push come to shove, you do part two if you have to, but I use my God-given talent, my mouthpiece to keep me out of trouble. But with that, I don't see too many people running and having long lines like they do at Academy when you're only getting 2 boxes of shells per week that you can buy. They had a big deal about that down here a couple of years ago, but I'd like to see it in past, law-abiding citizen, past recruiter, as well as Colonel Esquire. What do you guys think as far as that goes? I mean, do you think that people are going to go knock down doors and want to enlist?
It all depends. But I'm going to let Colonel Esquire, hit y'all with some nuggets first. Sir, talk to us.
All right. So I don't even know where to start, so I'm just going to get right into it. So going back to Dan's comment about, being an OG, or being the unk coming into the military. From a physical standpoint, it's definitely going to be tough. And I know a lot of these cats, they think that they can drink their creatine and lift in the gym and stuff like that, but it's a different type of shape. It's a different type of mindset. And so the body, physically, it's going to be tougher. But I think from a maturity standpoint, it might be a little easier because, when you're young, at least when I was young, I didn't know what I was doing and I was still trying to figure it out. But if you're 42 years old, there's a pretty good chance that either A, like Biggie said, baby on the way, mad bills to pay. So you're going to get that paycheck and get that insurance and that stability. But also too, you're going because maybe you had the opportunity to join. And I'm thinking that's where you're going to see a lot of these people. Well, I wanted to join, but I couldn't because of this, that, and the third back then. But now they've lifted the age. I can fulfill my goals that I had when I was younger, and that's joining. And I think that's a great thing for some people. If they missed the opportunity to join a few years ago, maybe they can do that now. No issues with raising the age. Cat 4s. Category 4, for those of us who are unfamiliar with that, to join the military, regardless of the branch, you have to be legally qualified, you got to be physically qualified, you got to be academically qualified, and you got to, score on the test. And that's where the category 4 comes in. The category 4 means is that you did not score what you needed to score on the test. And law-abiding citizen, correct me if I'm wrong. And then there's a waiver for those people who were on the borderline. You didn't pass, but you scored high enough to where we might let you in, because of what we need, the quota, basically.
Hello, leaders and future leaders. This is Retired Sergeant First Class Bites. In this video, we're going to discuss the Army's Category 4 or Cat 4 enlistment option, which allows a recruit to enlist with an ASVAB score below the normally required 31 AFQT. This option is subject to change and has been revised nearly every time it's become available. When Cat 4 is open, which means when the option becomes available, the Army and National Guard will only be able to enlist a certain number of recruits nationwide. When they meet that number, this enlistment option will immediately be withdrawn.
But and then you have, they have the weight issues. You have to be within height weight standards, and there's programs now to help enlistees get to that. So I have no problem with that, because those things, the Cat 4s, the weight, programs, they're still pushing forward to meeting the standard that's set in place. What I don't agree with at all, 100%, is what a lot of people don't realize. Okay, yeah, they raised the age from 35 to 42, but then they also allowed, first time drug offenders of marijuana and possession of drug paraphernalia to join. And that's what I take issue with the most. And here's why.
So just to recap, the military is now trying to recruit middle-aged people and anti-vaxxers who don't even want to come back. As long as they're not trying to bring in anybody else, maybe we're winning this war.
The Army also changing some regulations to let people enlist without a waiver if they have a single conviction for possession of marijuana or drug paraphernalia.
Okay, this is bad. This is bad. We've been at war a month and you're already down to stoners? This is like that Harold and Kumar movie, Mission Impossible 4, Ghost Protocol. We must be desperate, because I've never seen a pothead take a puff and then be like, I want to f somebody up.
Over the last couple of years, there was this big push on getting back to real standards, right? They had issues with all the grooming standards. So all the people who were growing beards and, the females with the braids and the locks and all that, they made a big deal about these grooming standards. We're lowering the grooming standards, so we're lowering the professionalism of the military. You're worried about some hair and you're worried about a beard, but yet you're going to allow stoners to join the military. That, to me, that sends the wrong message. I'm not sure what we're doing. And I'm not even trying to knock marijuana users. I mean, I don't use marijuana. I don't really see personally anybody that's very productive who's a chronic marijuana user, but that's just me. I mean, I wouldn't, but I'm not going to judge you. But what I am saying is that if the military is set on standards and we're lowering those standards, and essentially we're going to lower the quality of people that's coming in. All right. And politically, it irritates me, because he made this big deal about the beards and the locks and the dreads. I'd rather have somebody, with a beard like Grizzly Adams or Rick Ross or Willie Nelson or some long hair, but I don't want to make sure that they're, but then again, if they're like a weed smoker, are they going to be able to do the job? Are they going to be able to have my back when it gets hot? You see what I'm saying? And I'm not even talking about war. I'm talking about we over there trying to lift these boxes and you over there looking for some Doritos because you got the munchies. I ain't down with that. You see what I'm saying? I'm not down with that. So I just think it sends a wrong message as far as lowering the standards, not the age, but the marijuana possession charges or the CDS charges, controlled dangerous substance. I take issue with that. So, of course, I'm a prosecutor. I'm going to take issue with that. But even when I was a recruiting commander, yeah, they lowered the standards back then. But as commanders, we have discretion. We're not just going to let anybody in just for the sake of letting somebody in. Because a lot of times you let somebody in, just try to get those numbers, and they're not reliable. They're not going to make the ship anyway. They're not going to get on the bus. They're not going to get on the plane. They're going to skip out on you anyway. So you definitely have to vet the people that you're putting in the military, because, people got in trouble for that too. Having all these numbers of enlistments. You got 100 enlistments, but then 15 of them only show up and ship. That's a problem. So, yeah, I could go on like this forever, but I just think that the standards for the most part, yeah, raise the age. We need people, but if you're gonna lower the standards, then lower the standards. If you're gonna set the standard, then set it. Quit worrying about. I think our priorities are mixed up. We're worried about facial hair more so than drug use. And I take issue with that.
Well, well. I usually get the munchies about 3 o'clock, but I don't smoke weed. I'm just saying. But, a lot of valid points. I remember that old saying, go to war, go to jail, right? Back in the 60s with Vietnam, like my dad's one of them. My dad finished 5th grade. He's not a high school graduate, didn't have a GED, but they did his paperwork and they was able to ship him off to Vietnam. Makes you wonder, right? But I think it's always a cycle of how they handle enlistment. And I would say probably over the last 15 years, recruitment has been down. I can remember being a recruiter, man, in Dallas, Texas, well, actually McKinney, Texas. And there was always people coming through our door, knock, hey, we want to join. But the problem was either they were legally unfit or they were physically unfit. They might be smart as Einstein, but couldn't do anything with them. So when they talk about extend the age to 42, I really want to know a little bit more detail, like, what are some of the categories of how they're allowing people to join, right? Are they just, I know they're not just reservists. I know they're looking for active duty personnel. And I do believe that one of the reasons recruitment has dropped a little bit is because the standards changed. They start trying to be flexible with the civilian community, right? With what's going on in Google or Microsoft, right? The military is not neither one of those. The military is what it is. It's an organization of standards, and everybody looks the same. But then you had individuals in the political arena, people complaining to them about the benefits, right? People was complaining about a lot of the benefits veterans was receiving. Why do they get, VA benefits and all this other stuff for life? That's part of the biggest reason why we have a big deficit with reference to the Department of Defense budget, because we're paying people, we're living longer, so on and so forth. So, and I know I'm going on kind of like around the mulberry bush, but it all comes back to why extend to 42. 9 times out of 10, that person that's 40, 41, 42 has ailments. One of the reasons why a lot of people don't join is because they have pre-existing ailments. So are they going to overlook that and allow them to join? There's so many rabbit holes you can go down with this. I'm thoroughly against extending it to 42, maybe in the reserves, but not active duty, because that's a whole different lifestyle. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of TSA agents are out of work right now. Maybe they might be 37, 39. They're like, well, let me just go ahead and join, put another uniform on to be able to take care of my family. I believe, Colonel Esquire, you spoke about the benefits that you do get that will help you, as far as healthcare and things like that for your family, especially if you have a young family. So, there's pros and cons to everything, but I'm not really for extending the age to 42. Look at them Cat 4s that score between 27 and 30, and put them jokers on there. And just make sure if they, if they use a little substance, make sure they're not working with machinery. At least let them cook, be a cook. Okay. So everybody can have some, marijuana brownies in the chow hall. It's all good. It's all DJ Eddie T, you had your hand up.
Yes, sir. When that sciatica kicks in, a lot of them won't be able to do what they need to do. So, I know what a Sadaka is. So, but on a more serious note, I think about we have people that are just sitting there in prison. I know that this has come up before. Why not take some of those guys out of the system? I know you can't just take a guy who's somewhat being rehabilitated and throw him out there and train him for war, but it really all depends on what he's done. These gang members, they want to shoot people anyway. Send them to the military. I know there's more to it. I'm just a civilian who's, trying to think of ways to save the good people. But why have we not thought of taking people out of the prison system and putting them in the military?
Well, Colonel Esquire, you legal mind, you can have that one. Go ahead, Colonel Esquire.
Well, the short answer to that is because they're criminals. That's it. But that doesn't. I think that's a misperception of how people view the military. Like, yeah, all the riffraff, all the low lives, let them join because they're out here in these streets. So let them go shoot overseas. Well, there's a standard with the military. A lot of people don't realize. It's a career. It's a profession. And so, you're in the profession of arms. And so criminals obviously aren't adhering to a professionalism, or else they wouldn't be criminals. And I'm not judging criminals as far as, because we're all one bad decision from being in the penitentiary. I'm not trying to say all that. What I'm saying is habitually, if you're in prison, you have done enough in the eyes of society where you have earned the right to sit down for a while. So you're in prison. And the military is all about breaking people down. That's why we have basic training, because people from all walks of life, people from all locations, family values, whatever, they go to one place for basic training and they spend 8 weeks and 3 days being broken down and being built back up to think like a soldier and to have the military values of a Marine or a soldier or an airman or sailor, whatever, like that common goal. And to send criminals over, I'm not saying people can't be rehabilitated, but just to say the simple thing, okay, we got people in prison. Like, how do we know they won't be deserters once we get them out overseas, get them on training, get them on ground? We'll never hear from them again. They might be, we fighting the Taliban. They might be joining the Taliban for all we know, because they might have issues with the country that had them locked up. So I don't think that's a very good idea. There are some people that have changed their lives. Don't get me wrong, and had second opportunities. But I'm just saying that the prisoners, to Dan's point, all these keyboard gangsters, they're the ones still with voting rights, still with the opportunity to join, who are eligible to join. But it's easier for them to talk smack behind the keyboard instead of actually walking down to the recruiting station and enlisting. So, we have plenty of people that can, they talk about it, they need to be about it. I mean, in my view, if we're having the prisoners fight wars, we've already lost.
What I will say before, I think DJDT, you had your hand up. Now, if you're an individual that's between the age of, say, 17, 21, and you just made a bad decision, now you didn't kill anybody or something like that, but instead of going on, say, 3 years probation or maybe locked up for 2 years, I could see a person like that joining, right? But to Colonel Esquire, if you got, little Bootsy, out there, then had about 5 bodies to his name, 12 life sentences, right? It's like, hold
He
up.
beat all the charges. Thank you.
Yeah, he had a 13-year-old kid take the bodies for him. I wish I could get his voice. But anyway, I think there's avenues for each and everybody to support. But before I go back to you, DJ ADT, all I will say is, because it's a Republican decision, all Republican kids should take their ass to the goddamn fight. Because 9 times out of 10, they're the biggest keyboard warriors out there. DJ ADT, floor is yours, buddy.
Yeah, I just basically I said that for a conversation starter for the 14 fans that we have that may be thinking um, the way that others think. Now, I just basically wanted to kind of raise that point because I've heard that a lot. Just out in the community, why can't they send the guys who are in prison, or why can't they send these gangbangers, to fight? But in all reality, I know that there's structure and all of that stuff that has to do with the military. But I'm glad that Colonel Esquire broke everything down for the people who don't truly understand the military. Me being one, but I'm saying I have common sense, but I know that you can't just take someone out of the system and throw them out there and give them a gun, because they could be turning it on each other, because we have the guys who have made the proper steps in the military and have snapped and have, hurt their teammates. So I know that that's
Dan.
Yeah, I was just wanted to comment to your point. Yeah, putting some of the lighter criminals, I mean, you would actually have to have from my perspective, you would actually have a board that looks into where the cutoff line is. These younger cats make decisions, and they may have been the wrong decisions at the time. They may be savable, but you'll have to look into why they were imprisoned or had to sit down. And then on top of that, there's back in the day, you were right. There was decisions where the judge was like, either go to jail or go to the military. Uh, that is a viable option. Also, I don't know if you guys. I mean, I know it's been a while since we went through basic, but back then we had for the Air Force, you had a band squadron. So the people that were actually in band were in their own separate squadron, learning different activities, I guess is what you would put it. Still learning to be in the military, obviously, but you could do that for a so-called youth criminal league or however you want to put it. You would have to have special provisions out there, but it is possible, it is doable, and it would give those young gentlemen a second chance. The problem is trying to figure out the cutoff and figure out who's savable, who's not savable, and that's just my point of view.
No, that's a valid point. And I think, no matter what, every recruitment station, recruitment company, recruitment battalion, brigade, division, or what have you, they go through a lot of those different scenarios constantly, right? Trying to see who's the right one. And a lot of times they'll reach out to the commanders. Colonel Esquire can speak to this and be like, hey, we need letters of recommendations for said people. And the first thing you do is you look to see if the individuals went to church, or you look see if he was involved in the community, right? They try to get letters of backing. So it's not just as easy as just like, well, hey, Thunder Dan went out there and slapped 8 people, one Friday night because his New York Knicks lost. There's a wide range of things to
How'd you
go
know
on.
about my past?
Yeah. But, all jokes aside, I think that at one point in time, the military was a respected profession. People took it seriously when they joined, or when they tried to recruit people in, right? Yeah, it's crazy. Good luck to them. Notice I said them.
Coming right at the gate with no delay, getting started right away. Got a little bit to say. First off, glory to the Lord each and every day. He's the truth and the life. He's the only way. He's the potter, I'm the clay. What more can I say? Need to get him in your life. Hurry up, I'm the late. Getting that out of the way. Now we go on with our day. Gonna keep giving you bars, cause you know my resume. Treat the music like a crime, I'm a predicate. Cause I be murdering beats with the nouns, verbs, and the predicates. Hard, never delicate. Cause when it comes to a hater, see you later. We gotta stay separate. Ain't no doubt, I'm the one you can lean on. Man talk, search is what I be on. No doubt, cause every time you turn the beat on, my flow stay hot like a furnace in your house whenever you turn the heat on.
And yeah. Anyway, as discussions continue around extending military enlistment to the age of 42, broadening who gets the opportunity to serve, it naturally raises a bigger question about limits and boundaries in our society. That brings us to the freedom of the press, a foundational right, but one that often sparks debate over whether there should be any limits in the interest of security, accuracy, or public safety. Freedom of press. Should there be any limits? Now, I'm going to start with you, Colonel Esquire, because you PAO officer, you legal, you toe the line. You don't know if you want to be a, LeBron hater or lover. I don't know what the hell going on with you sometimes. But we're going to start with you, Colonel Esquire.
All right. So first and foremost, I'm definitely 100% LeBron James supporter. I don't agree with everything that he does, but of course, just with our children, we don't agree with all the decisions, but we still love them regardless, right? So yes, I'm still riding that LBJ train until Diddy gets on or Epstein gets on, then I'm getting off. But outside of that, there's not too much that's going to make me get off the LeBron James train. So I digress. But freedom of speech, or I'm sorry, freedom of press, actually. There are limitations to freedom of press. Several limitations. Now, I know by watching the news and watching the media, it doesn't seem like there is, but there are actually some limitations. There are actually some things that you just cannot do, or you're going to be liable for it. And that's for one, you can't defame somebody. Libel or defamation, you can't defame people. And I know it seems like that's what's going on every day, every time you turn on the news, but you cannot purposely or maliciously defame someone. You can't lie on somebody. Oh, that dude's out there smoking dope when you know good and well you don't have any proof to say otherwise. Can't do that. You can't do anything or publish anything that threatens national security. Now, there's also a situation with that, especially with this administration, called prior restraint, meaning like, okay, well, this is what needs to come out. And so the government's going to force you to keep it locked down. There's the argument about that. But for the most part, there's things that threaten national security you can't publish, you can't talk about. Obscenity, child porn, that's not freedom of speech. Incitement, you can't do stuff that's violent. Okay. So like with the, it's kind of like yelling fire in a movie theater. You can't do that. That's not your right. You can't do that. That's inciting violence. You know what I'm saying? You can't do that. And so if you're printing something or covering a story that's going to incite violence, you're going to be held responsible, or could be. Copyright, intellectual property, you can't infringe on that. Now, the biggest one that I think is being abused all the time is our privacy, the right to privacy. And that comes with the paparazzi. TMZ is just killing the game. You don't have any privacy when it comes to TMZ. If they want to find out something about you, they're going to find out about you. If they want to take a picture of you, they're going to take a picture of you. Right. And it's crazy to me because which I hope to God, I never get to the point where I have paparazzi following me around. But if I'm out somewhere and paparazzi takes a picture of me and I sue them, I can't sue them because they took the picture. So that's technically their picture, even though it's my image. A lot of people don't realize that. And so that's how, paparazzi can get away with all the stuff that they do. But I said all that to say this. Yes, there are limitations on freedom of press, but very rarely can anyone prove that they violated those limitations based on the stories that they write and the media coverage. And I know that, the current administration is really kind of taking a stab at the media, even going to the point of actually suggesting talking points for their articles. I don't know if you saw that. I'll have to send that clip to you. But yeah, for the most part, freedom of press, it's there for a reason. If we don't have a freedom of press, we're pretty much going to turn into state media like most countries, particularly in the Middle East, particularly in communist countries, where the government controls the press and we just publish and print what they tell us to. So I think the press is very important. And even though there are limitations, you're very rarely going to be able to get a court of law to say that they violated one of those.
Outstanding. Dan, talk to us.
Yeah, I think Colonel Esquire covered every corner, or however you want to put it, of that topic. Gave us all the information that we need to know for freedom of the press. I just have a slight thing that I personally don't like about the freedom of the press is when I read or watch the news, when I read the newspaper, I want to know the facts. I guess I'm just a different individual like that. I don't want to know your opinion. If I want to know your opinion, there's an opinion section in the newspaper. I'll flip to that and read that. Or you can put it off to the side and give me an opinion channel. I don't care. Just give me the facts. Let me know what's going on. This is what's happened. This is what's ended. This is what's happening. This is what's going on. Something like that. Not, oh, well, we think. No, I don't want to hear all that opinion. All that analysis stuff, that's a whole nother section. Put that away. That's why I have a problem with the so-called freedom of the press. A lot of it is basically the opinions of that particular organization that wants to publish that paper or publish that article or put that news out. They're giving you their biased opinion on a situation that just happened. I don't want all that. I just want the straight facts. And it's hard to find, and you're hard pressed to find that. So it's hard to follow up behind Colonel Esquire when he gives you so much information and gives you all the facts. So that's why I'm going to go a different route with this question and give you the answer that way.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, DJ Eddie T.
I know dealing with Colonel Esquire, you have to just, I don't know, you have to just bring it up to a different level. So I'm going to try to sound intelligent here. Freedom of the press is the principle that the media can report news and circulate opinions without censorship or interference from the government. Definition of it. So now I feel as if I'm up there with Colonel Esquire. But I just remember back in the day, tabloids, National Enquirer, Star, Weekly, those things. They would have just outlandish stories and people would just, run with it. And I guess back from the 80s up until now, there have been some sort of laws stating that you can't say those things about people. But I don't know if that stuff is really still available. I hadn't seen a National Enquirer and I don't know when. But I just remember how the stories were presented and, people would just be in a frenzy. Oh man, so-and-so did this. And none of that stuff would be true. So people began to sue people. Nowadays, I guess with freedom of the press, you can pretty much say anything to a certain extent and I guess get away with it. But within, I guess, the legal parameters, and which I don't know a lot about, but I just wanted to kind of add that piece from what I remember about freedom of the press were, basically the tabloids. And so I just, that's all I pretty much have to say about it. So I'll just kind of leave it at that.
Gotcha. Well, everybody made valid points, right? I think because we're from a genre of the 70s, we're 70 kids when you had the Walter Cronkite and, what was her name? Barbara Walters, right? Everything they said was, pretty much in line and it was legit, right? But as you come out with the National Enquirer and things of that nature, social media replaced those things. TMZ replaced, National Enquirer. My biggest thing or my concern is the national security piece because we talk a lot in the news about what's going on in our economy, political, facts or non-facts, but just a simple fact, some of the things that we talk about can be used against us in these different countries, right? So whereas Trump may come out and talk about, we're going to go down, we're going to do this, blah, 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 you're giving the enemy all kind of access, right? Because intelligence community on both sides is intelligent, right? So I think there should be I remember when I was in Afghanistan, certain things would happen. My mom would be like go back to the operations and they're like, hey, your mom called 4 times because all she heard was this location, not knowing that I was probably about 100 miles away from that location. But it was just because of what they decided or chose to present to the American public, right? So I think there should be some limitations to what is actually stated and talked about from a broad state, right? Does that take away the freedoms? Maybe it does, but does that make us more secure? Yes, it does. So I look at it from the national security aspect, because in America, we just think we're the cream of the crop. Ain't nobody gonna ever attack us. And what happened? 9/11, right? And who's to say what may happen again? So that's just where I stand when it comes to the freedom of press. DJ, ADT.
Yeah, I've always wondered why we have put our business out in the street, if you will, like that. I've noticed it. I've heard so many people say, man, you're taking our cell phone towers. We won't be able to communicate. Okay, why share it with the world? Because if anything were to ever happen, that's the first thing they're going to target. So I agree with you, law-abiding citizen, on, trying to keep some stuff to ourselves so we don't, put ourselves in a bad situation.
It's rough because, it doesn't matter if it's political, if it's in sports. Do I really care that Richardson got 15 kids by 15 different moms? Do I really care about that? Right? Do I really care that the Kardashian is well, that's a different story. But, it's just a lot going on with the freedom of press. And I just wish we could go back to the old Walter Cronkite days, Barbara Walters. Hell, even Oprah was pretty informed. Donahue, it wasn't. It was just entertaining, but it was factual stuff and how to make you better. Colonel Esquire, anything else?
Well, I was just going to go back to your point about, when you were deployed or whatever, and as far as certain things would go out or not come out. I know that in my experience, you're dealing with, I never dealt with like any top level, like national media news people, but, I dealt with like, ABC or CNN or whatever. But I mean, as far as like those news reporters that would come over and report stuff, I would never dealt with anybody that you see on TV a lot, maybe reporting here and there, like a couple people that if you're in the media, you would know them. But I guess I said all that to say this. A lot of times, you develop relationships with these news reporters and they know that, they have a right to the information, but there's certain limits that you put on them. Like, for example, if the president's coming in or some high congressman's coming in, you can give them that information, but you say, hey, you can't publish this until after he leaves the area for security reasons. Or, hey, we're going to have this airstrike over in this province, but you can't report it until, it's already completed and the troops are out of the area. Stuff like that. It's called embargoes, is what they call it in the media. You have the information, but you got to sit on it until a certain time. And that's typically what happens, like when the presidents, I think Trump's been in Afghanistan, Obama was in Afghanistan. So whenever they go and travel, they don't report it. They have all the stories and cues ready to go, but they don't set it off until they return back for national security reasons. And so that I don't have an issue with. And that kind of eliminates or cuts down on the amount of family members calling, trying to figure out what's going on, because, it's a big deal if a military service member leaks information to their loved ones, that's penalty. They can get in trouble for that. So I think by having the media access, that alleviates a lot of the stuff and some of the stress from the family members. Because those media people come in and they want to embed with the troops and travel with the troops and do all these things. So more power to them. But I agree, there needs to be some limitations, particularly with what law-abiding citizen was talking about, the paparazzi. Or since America doesn't have a royal family, I guess the celebrity kind of stepped in as our royal family. So that's why you have all this fascination with celebrities, which is insane to me. So the last thing I want to talk about, back before, the defamation piece. I don't know if you guys remember that big old lawsuit about Johnny Depp and his wife, Amber Heard, or ex-wife. And basically he sued her for defamation because he basically claimed that she was talking all this smack about him and doing all this stuff to the point where he couldn't get any jobs, and he ended up winning. And so I think that's an example of freedom of the press. And she's not a press person. It's more like freedom of speech / freedom of the press. Combined with her in the media, Johnny Depp was like, look, man, these fools are spreading or defrauding my name, defaming my name. I can't get a job. They trying to hire somebody else's Pirates of the Caribbean guy. You know what I'm saying? I can't make Pirates of the Caribbean Part 8. You know what I'm saying? So he ended up suing them and winning. So that's probably the most recent example of the limits of your freedom of press or freedom of speech in that regard. You can't just defame somebody and get away with it.
Hold on. I gotta disagree with you, young man. Well, I think about when Trump and them started saying that Obama was a Islam, a Muslim. He was born in, Africa. He wasn't an American citizen, right? Even though it was proven that he was, but they're still allowed to say it, right? When you talk about, and that's the defaming piece, right? But maybe that's not defaming. To me, it is. To me, it is because you tell me I'm not a U.S. citizen, but I really am.
Oh, it absolutely is. And you're talking about government officials, but I think to your point, when he first started saying it, he wasn't a government official.
True.
But there's a thing called immunity with government officials. Yeah, they get away with dang near everything. But
Everything.
so yes, for most of us, we're liable. But if you're in a government position, yeah, you're probably gonna get away with it.
But I will say this lastly before we close out this segment. DJ ADT, you're definitely not familiar with the Armed Forces Network. Like in the military, we have our own version of the news. And it's totally different than what you see in today's news, whether it's CNN, Fox, MSNBC, whatever you want to call it. But they just report the facts. You know what I'm saying? And I recall when we had some issues in a certain location and our area was demolished, right? And, jokers came through, but they didn't talk about, well, what happened? They talked about, how are you? It was in a positive enlightenment. It wasn't about, they weren't trying to get intelligence per se. Go ahead, Brother Dan.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to do some of those combat camper missions and talk to some of those guys, and they weren't reporting opinions. They were reporting what actually happened, what was going on. Obviously, they were taking pictures. We took them, but it was straight factual, and that's what I was looking for when I watched the media. I'm happy for AFN because it was a different form of media. People say it was corny. It was. Let's be honest. It was corny. But they didn't have the big production budget like everybody else. But they gave you what you needed to know. When you read through all that corny BS that's going on, you actually got the information that was needed to be presented out there. Just that simple.
You're on mute. Again,
You're on mute, Rob. Or law-abiding citizen.
You're on mute.
Sorry about that. DJ ADT, I'm sorry. I'm going to come to you in 1 second. But I don't know if Dan, Colonel Squad, if y'all remember this commercial. The commercials they were factual. That's all I'm going to say. Do you guys remember when the guy walked into the bar? He walked in the bar, he saw a lady that was sitting at the corner of the bar, very nice figured and everything. And then she turns around and opens her mouth and her grill is all tore up. But it was a reference to tobacco, right? Like tobacco use, right? I mean, I don't know. I just had to say that. Go ahead, DJ ADT.
It's always nice to make a good first impression, but sometimes it's the second impression that counts. Sorry now. Smokeless tobacco may be costing you more than your good health. Sorry now.
So basically, your news network was the Tubi of where was this televised? Of course, I never saw it, but I mean, was it just on military bases or where was it?
It was on military bases overseas, mostly in your deployed locations, but you still had them in overseas areas. Like you can catch AFN when you're on base in Japan or you're on base in Germany. So, but most of your deployed locations, they would play that 24/7 because you didn't really have too many local channels that they would play.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've never obviously heard of it or anything like that, but that's cool.
It was really crazy. I know my last assignment, their NCO development fell up under me at Fort Gordon. And to see some of these individuals that's been on the battlefield, taking these pictures, recording this stuff, you'd be amazed. Like sometimes you think that person's like maybe 170 pounds, just diesel, but it's a little female, 5'3", blonde. It's, the combat camera DENFOs, which, Colonel Esquire was part of when he was a PAO officer. I tried to get him in Signal, but that's a different conversation. Yeah, it's pretty good stuff. Pretty good stuff.
Man, it feels good to be doing this again. Reliving the days of my youth. I haven't had this much fun in a long time. Colonel Esquire. Also go by GIBSON. FMG on the mic. It goes 1, 2, uno, dos. If I ain't the best, man, I gotta be close. Best thing since sliced bread, I gotta be toast. I'm a soldier, always guard the limits of my post. Yep, Man Talk Central. I'm one of your hosts. I'm on point, precise with the poetry and prose, making that grade like it's the end of the semester. I'm the crown flow, always under the weather, but I don't need a booster shot. I like my bar 6, so the music's hot. Delivering the kill shot, coup de grace. You know I stay fly, fuselage, stay fly.
So, we covered a lot of information today. Pretty value added, I believe. So, what do you guys have as we proceed to close? I'll start with you. I'm not gonna go to LeBron hate lover. Dan, what do you have for the group?
Yo, since we're closing this episode out, people that love LeBron, please, just watch him. Just get some mental help. No, I'm just playing. But anyway, the mission for the troops out there. I hope you guys, your God has blessed you, and you guys stay safe out there. And then I'm glad hopefully TSA will come back and ICE can go about their business and do what they need to do and get some training and do what they were hired to do. But other than that, same message as always. Treat everybody how you want to be treated, and hopefully we can all get along.
Thank you, sir. DJ Eddie T.
Yes, sir. I really enjoyed this episode, and I hope a lot of people take note of what we've shared. We all come from different backgrounds, but our input we feel is extremely important and helpful. So just want everyone, again, to be safe out there this weekend, and go to church tomorrow. I'm going to leave it at that, because our God is good.
Time, all the time. Colonel Esquire.
Yes. So, getting back to, briefly, we talked about raising the enlistment age. And, I just want to say, echo Dan's thoughts, comments about the military service members. But more importantly, shout out to the family members, because they also have a toll that they take, when their loved one's deployed. They're kind of deployed because they're both separated, so service members cannot do what they do without the support and the patience of the family members. And so, keep your head on the swivel out there. Unfortunately, it seems like every generation has their share of conflict, and we'll see you next week.
Outstanding. Echoing all the comments. Especially to the troops. Blessings to the family and those that are currently serving and going through this hardship. Hopefully it will be over soon. As we close this episode, let's pause, honoring the loved ones we've lost. Appreciate those who still walk beside us. And welcome to new lives that remind us hope is always being renewed. Remember, our time isn't endless. We've got more days behind us than ahead of us. So choose to make the ones you left count. Lead with kindness, act with purpose, and whatever you do, do it with conviction. Make your impact, make it meaningful, and above all, make it yours. Please hit the subscribe button and post your comments. We thank each of you for your support and continue to spread the seeds of love and respect. Until next time, we the four brothers from down under saying peace.